Hi, my name is Roger King. I am with Midco Diving Marine. Our home office is in Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm actually in the regional office in Loveland, Colorado. Been in the industry for over 15 years, specifically with diving. Today we're going to talk about in-service water storage tank maintenance, specifically talking about the diving side. There's also the other side, doing ROVs. If anybody knows about remote operated vehicles, you can also, there's still some engineering companies that do float downs while they're still in service. But specifically, we're going to talk about the diving side of how to complete some of your maintenance while they're still in service. Hopefully, this is an interactive conversation. I'm here to present something that you may know about, you may not know about. This is for you, so if you have questions, please ask them. If you have specific questions about your system, come speak to me privately afterward. But if they're general questions about diving and all that, please feel free. This is for you, and I want you to get as much out of it as you can. In the back table over there by where the water is, I've placed some cards instead of just passing everything out. So you have a way, if you want to privately give me a call or whatever, feel free to pick up a card and give me a call. So, interactive. In the past few years, the diving industry has just exploded, specifically in the potable tank business. And we're growing by leaps and bounds right now. I have a crew in Missouri working today. I have a crew down in Colorado working today. We've been busy all winter. And it's just going to get busier and busier. We have people want to complete their tank maintenance without the headaches of draining. And I say that, obviously I am biased, but I also think, why would you want to drain the tank? There's obviously times you have to drain the tank, welding, blasting, recoating, things like that. In here, I've kind of switched up my presentation a little bit. Everybody in the last few years wants to know, what do you find in tanks? We want to see what actually is going on in the tank. So you'll see a lot of slides of what we find. I'm sure there'll be nothing in here in your systems of what you'll find in the tanks. There's some pretty scary stuff. I'm sure you guys are all on top of your maintenance. Also, I had a little bit of a short video clip actually watching a cleaning operation. It's actually in a steel bolted tank. Divers love those. Going over all the bolts, it's a little bit more challenging. But at least you can get the sense of what we do and how we go about it. So first, Midco Diving Marine. We were established in 2003 back in Rapid City, South Dakota. The owner is Robert Greenspan. He's been in the diving industry for over 20 years now. Like I said, my office is in Colorado. We're a full underwater construction company, which means we also have a total different side of the construction base, working out in the raw water reservoirs, working on lakes, rivers. The crew in Colorado right now is actually working on a dam, replacing all the cylinders and stems and the guides and putting a whole new trash rack structure on, things like that. So we also get into that. We do get into wastewater occasionally. Divers don't really like it. You can imagine why. But last year we actually had an emergency project here in Minnesota that we did right after the conference. We just got done with a paper mill in Wisconsin in December, working in their wastewater system. So we do have that capability. We don't push it, but if you do need something, feel free to give us a call that way. Today, specifically, we're talking about tanks. That's our niche market. That's where our crews are normally out and about. Last year, during all the floods in Omaha and everything, Omaha, Midwest, Northwest, the flooding was rampant. We had almost 4 crews going out constantly for all the flood stuff. We currently have projects going in 18 states, and that's growing rapidly. Commercial diving, what is it? It's basically placing somebody underwater who is actually specifically trained to work in that kind of environment. They've gone through school. There's several dive schools that they actually go to get their commercial certifications. There's actually one in Minnesota, a smaller one. I believe it's in Brainerd, if I remember right. But the majority of the divers that we hire are out of the Seattle one, the Divers Institute of Technology. There's one in San Diego, Houston, Florida. There's a couple on the East Coast. Some guys come straight out of the Gulf, doing offshore diving. We're specifically inland. So we don't get into any adult diving yet. We get asked to. Like we just got a call last week from somebody down in the Gulf who wanted us to help the system put an underwater sculpture park in. Okay, they want to pay for us to do it, we'll do it. There's two basic sides. You have the top side, and you also have the underwater side to completing the operations. The diver is somebody who works underwater. Specifically, you'll see in some of the pictures I have, we are a commercial diving outfit. So we use all dry suits, hard hats, live video, live voice communications. We have anything. We have tenders above the water, surface supplied air. The only air tank you would think, if you want to think of scuba diving, most of those are, that's actually an acronym really. They have tanks in their back. We have one just for emergencies and things like that. But all of our air is surface supplied air. These guys are professional. This is what they do. They get asked all the time if they dive when they're on their break. Normally, no. They're working every day. I had a buddy who used to live in Key West, and I was like, how can you not go diving in Key West? He's like, I get tired of diving, because I do it every day. I'm sure you can imagine that. They have quite a variety of skills. One of the things we really try and do is get people that have construction backgrounds. You got to learn on the fly, or go on the fly with a lot of stuff. So they're laborers, tradesmen, they're craftsmen. They get after it. They're specialists in their field. This isn't something that we take lightly. This is a pretty hazardous environment that they're working in, so they have to know exactly what they're doing. That's why we only use certified commercial divers, which means they have all the certification, gone to the schooling, and things like that. What does it take? Initiative, hard work. They have all their medical training, CPRs, all their O2, NO2s. There's all kinds of certifications that they have to meet. It's even more advanced. Their diving physical than a CDL physical. They have to pass their academic stuff at the school, and then they have to be technically proficient. There's constantly, you don't have as much issue here in Minnesota, but like some of the tanks in Kansas or Oklahoma, they get the big tall standpipes. They just say it's 100,000 gallon. It might be 100 feet tall. Well, there's some diving issues that we have to worry about there, elevations, depths and stuff like that. Task qualified. Surface supplied air, shallow water air diving requirements. There are some requirements that we have to abide by. Besides OSHA, there's another one called the ATCI, which is the Association of Diving Contractors International. Not all companies are members of that. We are. They even have stricter guidelines that we have to abide by. Minimum, we have 3 people on our potable crews. And, we have our dive supervisor, who could be a diver in the water at that time. But you have a diver in the water, we have a tender on top where the entry point is. Usually it's at the hatch. And then we have our guy in the trailer, who is actually what we call running the rack, and that's making sure all the air compressors and everything is running properly. Once again, they all have to be qualified to do it. Here is just a quick picture of what one of our guys is doing as they're entering in. This happens to be in Colorado, and you'll see, I want to point this out, right here, it's actually the entry hatch. The utility did not want us to skirt that, but we do have the ability to skirt. You'll see right back here is actually our type where all of our equipment is. So this is our actual guy, the tender. He's suiting up, making sure the hard hat and everything. On the back, this line right here is actually umbilical. That's the one that has our loud voice communications, that has their air hose, and that has their video monitor system in it. Just before he's entering in, whoops, go back there. No, you can still see it right here. Right there. He is actually getting decontaminated with a 200 parts per million chlorine solution. That's per OSHA guidelines. And we also abide by all the AWWA standards on that. So before any diver or any equipment go into, especially a potable tank, there is a decontamination process that they go through. That's probably one of the biggest questions I always get. Why are you guys going to contaminate our tank? No. Yes?
Why is he decontaminating before he's been in the tank? Why doesn't he do it on the platform?
He's already done, in this picture, he's already done it up on top, and then it's just the last final one before he goes in. So we've actually had people do their chlorine residuals before and after we've been in, and our chlorine residuals almost go up because it's a high concentrated sentence going. This happens to be, you can see it's actually in a tennis court, 2 courts there. I believe that's a 10 million gallon tank, if I recall right. It's at least 5, but I'm almost positive it's 10. 245 foot diameter or something like that. When should you do it? We can go by all the AWWA guidelines. The new ones are for pretty much for steel tanks. They want you to at least go in and do your inspections every 3 years. There's still 3 to 5 on the concrete tanks, so we go by that. There's also your National Fire Protection Agency or Association has their guidelines. Sometimes they want you to go in every year for the NFPA. Also, certain states are requiring certain different things for their potable. For example, Texas, they have to do an inspection every year. Arkansas is every year. Some other states are doing every other year. And it's constantly changing. So we have to keep on top of that, and we go by all those recommendations, and we follow all those. Where, obviously, we're talking about the intakes, the traveling screens, wet wells, the clear wells, distribution tanks, and that's where we're talking towers, on grades, the below grades, concrete, steel, PVC. Every once in a while we still run across those. We run across in Washington wood tanks still on the west coast. Not very common, but they're still out there. None of your tanks look like that, do they? Sure not. A little bit on the outside. We do a lot of work in the below grade tanks, and there's a lot of roots that are getting into the below grade tanks that we're finding. It's not even localized. There's been a couple here in Minnesota that we found that have been that way. More so, it's more in the western part, Idaho, Oregon areas. It's kind of what if we pull up on a job site, we have a different truck now. You can kind of see if you're inside the trailer there, that's where we have our dive station. We encourage you to be inside there, so you can actually look at what the divers are doing on the monitor. You can talk to the divers. If there's parts in your inspection that you want to look at a little more closely, ask questions about, we recommend you're there. We recommend that you bring a council member, board member, mayor, whoever, so they can see it as well when you're in there, and ask a lot of questions. There's a few different types of pictures and tanks that we actually get into. Big hydrant doors that was down in Dodge City, Kansas. A lot of the times we get asked, my outside of my tank is looking terrible. I need to blast and recoat the whole thing. Well, they might not. The outside might be looking bad. We'll jump in and do an inspection on the inside, and the coating system's totally fine. So we highly recommend, before you spend the thousands of dollars that you're going to spend on a total blast and recoat, hire a diver, have an inspection done, because it'll save you a lot of money. It might not need to be done. The whole focus of what we try and get you to understand and to realize, you need to be on a regularly scheduled maintenance program. That's the highest thing. It's kind of hard. I know with the economic times, councils and the budgets are restricted and constrained a little bit. If you can consistently do stuff, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of money down the road. A lot of standpipes, the old coolie tops, divers love these. They're a little bit tougher to get into, especially if the pointed roof is pretty peaked. That was down in Polk, Nebraska. Sure, this never happens in Minnesota. Kids taking pot shots at your tanks.
That's the overflow.
Yeah, that's the second overflow is that one. We do a ton of leak protection, leak repair work with kids. There's a guy down in Kingman, Arizona that calls almost every 6 months. Hey, kids were out there shooting on my tank again. So we have to run down there and fix it and go on and do it. We'll do it from the inside. There's some underwater epoxy that we actually use. We can do leak detection work using food grade dye. And the epoxy just kind of adheres underwater. It's NSF approved for the use of potable water systems. It just kind of adheres in there and seals up your leak pretty good. That's what happened to that tank before we did the fix, just trashing the outside of it. Skipping through a lot of these, don't want to get to that actual video to actually show you the cleaning process. Inspection, in-service water tank maintenance. What are we actually talking about? It's a wet inspection on tanks, and we also cleaning, utilizing divers, specifically talking about divers. On the storage tanks, what are you doing in there? Sediment, debris removal is one of the biggest things that we do. A lot of people say, oh, my water system's great, filtration plan is great, I don't have any sediment in my tank. We'll dive in and say, we'll find 3 or 4 inches in there. Water always has sediment floating in it. You know that. It does settle out in the tanks. That's just the way, the nature of the beast. So you do need to go in there. There was a town we were just in Wyoming back in last month that they were having some water quality issues. I'm saying, well, when's the last time you actually cleaned your tank? Well, I don't know. Had no records on it. We went in and cleaned it out. They ended up having 6 inches of, in Wyoming they've got a lot of clay, so they had some clay in there. Their water quality, the tasting actually, they had a lot of reports of tasting increased after we were out. People called and said, the water tastes better. Well, duh, you just cleaned all the sediment out of it. It's going to increase your water quality. We do a lot of warranty inspections. As you're going through, especially on your steel tanks, you're getting them blasted or recoated because coating will fail eventually. And then normally you have 1 or 2 years, depending upon how your contract is worded, where they come back in and have to do a warranty inspection to make sure that what they did is still adhering, that it was applied properly. We go in as a diving company, you don't have to take it out of service again just to complete a warranty inspection. So we highly recommend that you start looking at diving specifically to complete your warranty inspection work. It's just a great way because we document everything in video. We do a lot of plumbing and retrofits inside water storage tanks, as in riser pipes, mixers, things like that. Corrosion issues is probably one of the biggest things that we find. Every water system is different. Water is a very corrosive animal. And if the coatings aren't applied properly, we'll have coating issues, rust noduling, staining, delamination of the coating, stuff like that. We can repair, fix all that on your plumbing, the brackets, all the hardware, the inlet, outlet, overflows, ladders, things like that, all the structural components. We can even do that work on the below grades in the concrete tanks. All that epoxy adheres actually a lot of cracks that happen in concrete tanks. Okay, here's some diver-directed tank cleaning. The divers are trained to do this without stirring it up. All the sediment on the bottom, you don't want to cause your turbidity spikes. Occasionally you will see that right when they go down, sometimes at first initially you'll see a little bit of poofing out of the sediment, depending on what kind you have. If you have little iron manganese, a little flock, sand, obviously you can do that. But they're trained to do it so that they're not stirring it up, and they're documenting this on the video. We recommend that the biggest thing you want to look at is what's going on in your floor of your tank. You need to clean your floor majority of the time before doing an inspection so you can actually see what it is. If you've got a bunch of sediment down there, your inspection, will show you everything above that, but below that's kind of tough to see. So we do our cleanings first. The discharge materials are the responsibility of the owner. Every state has different requirements for what we have to do. If we do a cleaning over in Wisconsin, we have a form we got to fill out. We have the ability to dechlorinate. We have a dechlorinator. If we need to on our discharge, we have the ability to use sediment bags if we need to trap the sediment in a bag. This isn't hazardous material. A lot of times it goes down a drain, in a field, it doesn't matter, and then the water evaporates and utilities just takes care of it. Sometimes they just spread it out and leave it. And like I said, we can either dechlorinate it or use sediment bags. This is a big thing. We find a lot of construction debris after something's been done on the tank. Beer bottles and all kinds of stuff that we'll find in there. That's one of our cleaning heads. We use 4-inch trash pumps, and we can cover quite a bit of square footage. That's how we base all of our pricing. How much of a tank can we clean? What's the square footage? So we look at gallons, dimensions, and run the math and figure out how many square feet, because we know how many square feet a day we can clean. And that's one of our cleaning heads there. If it gets Sand, if you have a lot of sand, we're not running out of a whole lot in Minnesota, but there are areas that actually get pockets of sand. Sometimes that machine will work well, that kind of hand nozzle and stuff like that, just because it's heavier. Another picture of the actual cleaning. Here's a picture of our hand nozzle. This was actually on a project in Utah. And I'll show you another picture in a second of what actually goes on. I'm sure none of your tanks have that kind of issues going on there. And corrosion. Just sucking it out. This is another picture of that one in Utah. They had a well go down. They had been in this tank 6 months prior to that. They had a well emergency. They went in and fixed their well and said, "Oh, our tank's going to be clean, but we have to do our inspection." We found piles 4 feet high of sand in there from their well. This is just another one that was actually in Wyoming. Just want to show you a little bit of on the inspection. There's no downtime when you use divers. All we ask is that you have the tank as full of water as you can get. The divers prefer you to turn the pumps off when they're there. You don't have to. But there is no downtime. We do it while they're totally in operation. It's in full, and it really works great in what I call the one-horse towns that only have one tower or one tank. You don't want to take it down for a draining. You're down for a week. Stuff like that. And whether it's a draining company, ROV, divers, whatever, schedules are fluid. We never know exactly when we're going to be there because the tank before we were in the day before might have had, 4 feet of sand in it or had some repair work they needed us to do. So it's kind of fluid, but with divers you don't have to worry about it because your tank is full anyway, so it's not disrupting your operations. There's some confined space regulations and stuff that you don't have to worry about when your tank is full of water. The divers we're always in a confined space environment, and so we have to watch that. You don't have to do the extra cost of shocking the system. There was a guy I talked to the other day down in Nebraska, and he's like, "Yeah, I had a drain company come in, drain the tank down, did their inspection, filled it back up. They didn't pass their test, had to drain it down again, reshock the system, filled it back up, and they were down for 2 weeks because it was a real hassle with city members. They were getting calls all the time. You lose one of the biggest things that you lose, especially in the towns that are smaller systems, not larger tanks. You lose your fire suppression capability. Sometimes you have the ability to divert the flow, then you're putting a lot of extra strain and stress on your system. What was it, last year in Boulder, Colorado, 2 years ago, 2010 in Boulder, Colorado, they were doing some tank work, drawing some down, divert the flows, and they blew a bunch of lines all over Boulder, just from that. One of the questions I get asked all the time, how much water am I going to lose? You will lose some in the cleaning process. On average, we say it's anywhere from 3 to 10% of the total volume of the tank. Instead of, so if you got a 100,000 gallon tank, it could be anywhere from 3 to 10,000 gallons. It depends upon what type of sediment you have in there. The iron manganese, the flock, comes up really easy, so the divers aren't in there as long. Sand, clay, heavier, they're going to be in there longer, they're going to use more water. But on average, it's anywhere from 3 to 10% that you will lose when you're in there. Some more pictures. Kraken. This is out of a tank in Colorado. It was actually a clear well. That's one of the tanks that is missed in systems a lot that you kind of forget about. These had huge line deposits all over the place. And it takes a while. I'm sure you guys don't have that here now. So here's a picture of that one in Utah. That's all sand. And that had been totally cleaned 6 months prior to that. So, thought process. If you're going through and your well goes down, you might want to take a look at your tank just to see what's going on there. Because these guys are totally stoned when they ran across that kind of sedimentation. Another one of those, I'm sure nothing like that will ever happen in Minnesota, I'm sure. Staining. This is kind of an interesting tank. There's a lot of things that happen inside the water tank with water. Staining is just cosmetic. It doesn't really affect anything, but the rusting down in the pitting, that's a concern that you'd want to take care of. The staining isn't as much, but the rusting, that's where you're eating through the metal, issues like that. So there's definitely issues that you can. Minnesota, you have all the ice caps, just tears up the coating systems. There aren't as prevalent very much that we're finding here is all the cathodic protection systems. You would not believe how many anodes and stuff we recover off the floor, where the ice caps have just torn them off, ladders have been torn off. And that's repair work that we can actually go in and fix. Pitting. Line with your site, some more delaminating. That's somebody else. That's kind of another dive company that come into this tank and completed some epoxy repair. They have a little bit of rust on them. It's kind of weird. It's designed as a band-aid, if you will. If you do regular maintenance, do a little bit of coating repair, as you're going through, you can extend the total life of that coating system out. Because the total loss and recon is very, very expensive, as you guys know. But if you can extend that out from, instead of 15 to 20 years, 25, 30 years, and you just do a little bit of coating repair periodically, you'll be saving yourself a lot of money and a lot of headache by periodically going through doing that. Ladders, it's another one that we find are just trashed all the way through. Corrosion, another one of the ladder. A lot of corrosion we find on the plumbing. Going through a whole construction debris, rust on them, your screens. Just all kinds of. All these things are happen because people didn't have a regular schedule plan. They weren't constantly going in there, following the guidelines, going through. There is no such thing as a maintenance-free tank. You have to do maintenance on periodically in all the tanks. Just coating with the glass line ones, the aqua stores. We find a lot of those that when they were bolted together, the spider webbing because the bolts were done. The heat was wrong. There always is maintenance to be done on a tank. On a tower, there's some things that go on, more specifically on the water spheres, some on the hydropillars. People ask if we actually will go down into the fill column. They can a little bit. Normally they don't. So just so that you're aware of it, that's normally not going to happen. There's some guiding constraints and penetration and stuff like that where they have to kind of watch it and it'd be a whole lot more expensive for you. If they can, they will take out their camera and kind of lower it down in their in that field tube as much as possible. A lot of them have the grading on them and can't move, so they're kind of limited on that as well. Be aware of many things. Divers work in hazardous, potentially lethal environments. We, as a full-blown marine underwater contractor, we pay several $100,000 a year in insurance. There's a thing called the Jones Act. It's kind of for anything on the water, boat-wise, barges, things like that. It's a lethal environment. You never know whenever you're taking regular air to go on surface supply. Insurance companies just jacked everything up. So it is a lethal environment that we work in. When you hire companies, make sure that they are commercially certified. Make sure that you are getting certificates of insurance. It's really easy for our insurance companies to generate those and make sure that they have the coverages available. We have, I think it's $1 million workman's comp and $4 million umbrella. So we have $5 million in coverage just to be safe. You don't want to take the liability. Put that on the contractor. Most of the accidents that occur are actually outside the water. Occasionally there are issues that happen underwater, not very often, but there are occasions that do happen. So you want to make sure that you're bringing in people that are qualified and able to do the work. Hire a commercial contractor that's actually experienced, that they know what they're doing, that they're involved in a variety of different things, and you can tell that right away. Our philosophy at Midco is we're not just trying to do one job for you, we want to be long-term solutions for you. So that is our whole goal, is to be being able to assist you in your maintenance all the way through. Regulations, you have OSHA, you got the Coast Guard that are regulating. OSHA is the 29 CFR 1910. Coast Guard has their 46 CFR. There's also the NOAA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the EN 385 standards. I bring that up because it's important for you to know, if you're going to hire a dive contractor, what the actual scope of your work is. There's different requirements that we have, depending, for example, there's one in Pierce, South Dakota, that they want us to look at intake. It's a big 48-inch intake, and it's a quarter of a mile long. Well, for us, it's a penetration dive. So there's different requirements, different staffing levels that we have to have. We'll have to have 2 divers in the water and things like that. So if you're looking at that, make sure you know what your scope of work is going to be, and make sure that the company that you hire, hopefully Midco, will be able to meet those guidelines. There's also NOAA. There's some medical or Navy, the Navy diving manual has one. Selecting contractor. How do you select one? You want to make sure that they're qualified, but also if you're looking at doing an in-water inspection, feel free to give us a call. We have utility calls all the time. Hey, I'm at least thinking about doing this. What should I be looking for? We'll be totally upfront and honest with you. You want to make sure, because we are focused on, number one, you getting the process and your maintenance done correctly. Now, that's the worst thing you want to do is hire a contractor, and all of a sudden, say the turbidity gets all messed up, and you're getting phone calls from grandma down the street complaining because her water's brown when she turns on the taps, and it doesn't look good for anything. So feel free to give us a call, and we'll assist you in writing the diving guidelines that you need to work on. Understand that there's business risk involved for you whenever you're hiring any contractor. And it's not always the purchasing agent that should make that final decision. Not to say anything bad about purchasing agents, but the bottom price is not always the best price for what you're looking at doing. Ensure that the scope for what you're actually trying to do and what you're needing to accomplish gets in there. Insist that the bidders, like I said, get that certificate of insurance. Not all companies have it. Not all companies are using 3-man crews. They should be, but they're not. And so, some of them are still using wetsuits somehow. We also say we're vendors of the ATC, that's the Association of Diving Contractors International. Somehow I don't know. Is there any questions yet at this point? Yes, sir.
On that, you showed the rust spots that you were repairing.
Yes.
There was also some places where there was lots of coating that was peeling off the
Yes.
sheets. Would you be able to do that kind of stuff, repair that peeled sheet?
We can, but what we'll take a look at is it in your best interest to have us do it? We're normally saying the best, maybe a 3-foot by 3-foot section. If it's totally trash like that, it might be best, we'll say, we'll hit the most important spots right now. You probably need to plan and budget for a class in a Rico. We're totally upfront and honest with you on that. There's one that we're looking at in Missouri right now that it's all around the water line. The coating is doing exactly that. And they had a quote from a Glass and Rico, and it was like $80,000 just to fix it. And they're like, "Can you do it? We don't have $80,000." Well, yeah, we can do it and do that. And just to help them budget for that kind of stuff, because it's expensive. Any other questions real quick?
Where's your closest office?
Where's our closest office? Right now, Rapid City from here. We, like I said, we currently are active in 18 states, pretty much from Michigan straight south, all the way to the west coast. We actually just added some states, so it might be more than that. But calls from low end, we go nationwide, really. Any other questions about diving that we can answer for you? Okay, like I said, there are cards in the back. I wish that video would have played. I'm sorry about that. I watched it last night. I'm not sure why it didn't. If you would do this, would you fill out an evaluation and give it to the Rural Water Association? Our goal is to help you in your education process. If you have questions, if there's anything that we can change that would help you better, be more efficient in your time, feel free. Please let us know that. If you do have questions, like I said, my cards are back there on that table. Grab them, give me a call. If you're looking at pricing, you know, feel free. I'll let you know. It's kind of hard to compare draining versus diving. It's new. Yeah.
Can we have your attention back there, please? Let's keep it down if we could.
What was that?
No, what's the smallest sizes or tanks you go into? Or?
The smallest one that we've gone into is actually a 4,000. Now the issue is we're going to drain it down pretty quick. They're small, but we know that. And the pumps usually are running 30 gallons a minute in those size of tanks. The issue we have is the access hatch. We need a 24-inch access, either an oval or a square to get in. But well, there's a couple in Sturgis, South Dakota that they want us to, clean as much as we can of all drains. Which is, that's okay, as long as you're aware of that. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Roger? If not, how about a round of applause? And thank you for your time.